My name is Rick Rynearson, and I'm the founder of veteransagainstpoliceabuse.org. With VAPA, basically what we're trying to do is create some applications and raise awareness to get people to record their encounters with cops and make sure that they can secure the truth of events. I have an appeal at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals concerning a Border Patrol checkpoint encounter. So the Border Patrol checkpoint there, when I showed up, they asked me one question. They asked me, was the vehicle I was driving mine? I said yes. The agent asked me if my window could roll down further. I said it could roll down further, and I rolled it down further, and then he secondaried me. So at that point, I knew he wasn't interested in immigration status, or he would have asked for it, to send me to secondary within 20 seconds. Obviously, something was up. So I rolled up my window when I went into secondary. They ordered me out of my car. That was the first thing they did, was order me out of the car. I refused to get out of the car. They have no authority to exit the car, and I have no legal, nothing compels me to get out of the vehicle. They can't do that. So I stayed in the car. They then basically just dilly-dallied asking me questions about, my military status. They weren't interested in my immigration status, and they didn't ask me about anything related to immigration until 11 minutes into it. At the 11-minute point, I asked him, "Do you want a passport?" And he ignored me, as if, his job is to inquire into immigration status. They said this 34-minute detention was solely to inquire into immigration status, and yet he's not interested in a passport, so that makes no sense. So instead, he asked me for the first time, was I an American citizen? And I said yes. And then he began lying that he had asked me about my immigration status in primary, which was completely incorrect. And the video evidence shows that he had never done that. So basically, the checkpoint was 34 minutes to harass me. It was not limited to immigration status. They didn't care about whether or not I was an American citizen. They just wanted to harass me. It's an important court case because, and a lot of people don't understand the law about these interior checkpoints, but basically, Americans have the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures given our Fourth Amendment. We should be free from cops or government just interfering and introducing themselves into our lives without any suspicion of wrongdoing. Now, the Supreme Court, when they heard a case Martinez Forte about these checkpoints, they said as much. They said, that if a police officer or an agent gets, seizes you or your vehicle, absent any individual suspicion of wrongdoing, that is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. They have to have a reason. But in that same case, they also said that they were going to make an exception because the government has a compelling interest, to combat illegal immigration. So they said, okay, we're going to allow these interior checkpoints, these suspicionless checkpoints, but they have to be brief. They have to be minimally intrusive, and they have to be limited to the programmatic purpose, which is inquiring into your immigration status. So that's what the Supreme Court said. The reason my case is important is because if I don't win, basically then the Fifth Circuit is saying that they're overturning themselves when they ruled in Machuca Barrera. They're overturning themselves and saying that all those limits that were placed on these checkpoints, they no longer apply, and you can be stopped for 34 minutes, harassed, have your employer called. Even if you answer 17 of 18 of their questions, you're totally compliant, and you give them a driver's license, a military ID, and not one but two passports. So if there are going to be any limits at all to these checkpoints, then it's, then the Fifth Circuit is going to need to reverse the district court. It's an important case because if we don't win this case, it means that there are no limits to these checkpoints. One of the reasons that this is important to me, and I don't just quietly go about my business or just go on my way. It was only 34 minutes. A lot of people say, it's not worth fighting for. But for me, I'm a military guy, and even though these are my own opinions and don't represent the opinions of the Department of Defense or the Air Force or the military at all, these are only my opinions. But for me, I've got 8 deployments overseas. I've been in combat, and I've seen guys on the ground die, actually give up their lives to defend the Constitution that that protects us, in our country, Now, I can't say with any certainty that the people I've seen sacrifice their lives actually did so for the Constitution or they were even aware, but I like to think that they were. But what I do know is that, their sacrifice is something that will not allow me to just, for the sake of convenience, for the sake of getting along or whatever, it's not going to allow me to just not fight when I see violations of the Constitution here at home. These are our freedoms. When we talk about, going to combat to protect the freedom of the American people, well, freedom, here in America, where the rubber meets the road, is in that thin line between an American citizen and an armed government agent of the state. That's where real freedom lives and dies. And when I see that challenge, it's I believe that I have to stand up for the Constitution and make sure that that government servants here at home are complying with the Constitution, are restraining themselves, and are recognizing the rights of the people that they serve. If the court system doesn't get it right in my case, then all of the limits that were put there by the Supreme Court of the United States and the Fifth Circuit in Machuca Barrera have been obliterated. And now these are no longer suspicionless checkpoints. These are going to be checkpoints where everyone is suspected of a crime, whether they've done one or not. Our constitutional rights are important, so a lot of people would look at my 34-minute video and then think, so what? It's 34 minutes, and it's not like you were battered and bloodied after it. But our constitutional rights are very important, and government will try to take an inch, and if you give them that inch, they're going to take a mile. And we can never, for the sake of convenience, just allow government to violate our rights. It's a very important thing. And the other thing is we need to stand up for the rights of each other. So if you don't stand up for the rights of your neighbor, you are not defending the rights of yourself. The rights of those people that live next to you, that live in your country, even people you don't like and don't agree with. Constitutional rights of all American citizens need to be protected by everybody. Otherwise, we're all going to suffer.
Before that, went out on the road with Liberty on Tour and Motorhome Diaries, and before that I lived in Arlington, Virginia, and I got stopped open carrying, so that was one of my first experiences.
My permit is the Constitution. You don't need a specific permit to film.
For me, journalism is reporting something that somebody